Tēnā tātou katoa nau mai ki tēnei huiata. Tēnei huiata e kōrero ana mo tēnei mea te Waiata. Kia ora everyone, and welcome back to our final episode for our webinar series on Me Upoko Pakaru kia Rite. Joining me today is Atawhai Tibble. But before we get into it, we'll just start off with our opening karakia. Tūtaua mai I runga, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho. Kia tau wai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tā.
Tai ki e.
Tēnā koe Atawhai, nau mai.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora te whānau, kia ora te aorangi. Tēnā koe te katoa.
We had Atawhai join us a couple of times during the previous webinars, one on pepeha, as you may all remember. And it's awesome to have him back here today for Waiata, which Atawhai has had a bit of history on in the past. So if we take a look at the different types of Waiata, in Te Ao Māori, we have many different types of Waiata. Some of these examples we're going to list off here. We have a Waiata tangi, which is a lament. We have Waiata ngahau, which are songs that we use for the purpose of entertainment. We have mōteatea, which is more like a bit of a, which is, what would you call it? It's a chanted poetry or
Yes.
Kind of a bit like the tangi of the song comes out a little bit from it. But we've got other ones such as himene or a hymn. And we've got an oriori or a lullaby. Atawhai, do you want to talk us through a little bit about what about some of these different types of Waiata and when you might go about using them and why we would use them?
Kia ora, te aorangi, tēnā tātou. I mean, I think if you look at this list and what you see as function and purpose, as well as the word Waiata or song, and so what you can see for Māori, for every kind of functional purpose, we actually have a Waiata or a Waiata form, which actually tells you a lot about our culture. It tells you that some people call it a kinaki or a relish. Other people say you can't get up or do something or do a process without a without a Waiata. So I think it is one of those things where we have songs for lament, so Waiata tangi, at funerals, for those of you who have attended a Māori funeral, even though himene, hymns, which is really the Christian version of Waiata or songs, even though you'll hear those at tangi probably quite commonly, actually Waiata tangi or laments are very, very important, and they can be very, very ancient songs that recall things that happened at various battles or occasions that might have happened in terms of conflict, or even lamenting a loved one who has disappeared. So they're kind of where we would put our myths and legends and our stories in all of these forms.
I think it's important to notice that we use Waiata to talk a lot about some of the myths and legends that we have in Te Ao Māori.
Yep.
And I mean, Waiata tangi, we use Waiata in a wide variety of ways, in that, we use it to lament our dead. We use it to tell stories about certain times. We use it to tell stories in the current day, even with the later Waiata that have been coming out, in the last few years. So I think it's really, it's important to understand that Waiata is just another avenue for us to be able to express ourselves, much as we do in other areas of our language.
Yeah, definitely. But there's something about the fact that a culture would use song to do that, or tunes, or, versus just saying things or a monotonal thing. So if I'm honest, if you listen to some of the old recordings, I think Merv Smith has them in the Auckland Library. The collection's also in the National Archives. I know Praone Gloin and others have been going in there. Charles Royal, Tahu Karamu did a big piece of work in there. You can actually also hear, Te Aorangi, how the kind of tunes have changed over time and become a lot more melodic and you can hear the influences of choir or contemporary singing coming in. And I suppose it's unavoidable because no culture stands still. Having said that, the while those tunes may have altered somewhat to meet the times, at the same time, Waiata itself as a form continues to be a critical and important feature of our culture. So here we go. Waiata Tangi Lament, Waiata Ngaho, so entertainment. Various tribes will have songs that are well known. That's their song. Say you go to a hui, and you have a hakari, and then some people go. When you come in, the local people will be they'll probably be entertaining you with the Waiata that's local. And actually, when you go, you could use a Waiata that's from your own area, and that's kind of the intermingling and the exchange that happens in hui Māori. More teateo, those around more traditional Waiata, they will be less kind of contemporary in terms of the style of the singing. It might be the note range won't be as high, and it's not really a harmony thing. Himene, obviously Christian influenced harmony. Uri, and there's a whole range of others, lullabies. I think, as Childing was saying, there's various functions, purposes, reasons why we have Waiata, and that's just another form. So kia ora.
And it's coming back to your point on Waiata Ngaho. Something I've seen just in the last kind of 3 or 4 months is being reintroduced into Waikato Tainui and the Waiata that they use around the kai process as a way of, or as a form of entertainment. So there's many different situations and scenarios where a Waiata Ngaho will be used in order, for the purposes of entertainment. Now, just moving forward to recap on the different use of Waiata. So what is Waiata used for? I think Atawhai's covered it really well. We have Waiata that are used for the purposes of entertainment, for lamenting our dead, for telling our stories. It's essentially another avenue that we use, or that Māori have long used to tell stories and to talk about things that are relevant to them at the time. And therefore, Waiata is used in situations where it's relevant to express that sort of, to express the relevant story or purpose from which you've come together for.
Yep.
And it's important to us because it is an avenue for us to tell our stories and whatnot. Ka pai. So if we take this information and we move forward a little bit into a well-known song that was composed by Morven Simon, which is Te Aroha. Now I'll take you through some of the kupu, or some of the words, which are really simple, and then Atawhai will go through the tangi, or the sound of this Waiata. Ka pai?
Kia ora.
So Te Aroha, which means love. Te whakapono, which means hope, or to desire, or what you wish for. Me te rangi Mārie, which is peace. Tātou, tātou e, which is for everyone. So if we look at the Pākehā, we've got love, hope, and peace for us all. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Mārie, tātou, tātou e. Now, Atawhai, can I get you to go through the tangi of this Waiata, go through the sound?
I'll do that, but I might back it up a little bit and talk a little bit about Morven Simon, because I know him well, because he was one of my teachers at Hatupōuri College. So Morven's actually from Whanganui, or the Wanganui River, from the Kāwhaiki marae there, and he was at Hatupōuri College. He's an old boy. That's the Catholic Māori boarding school in Fielding. He was a cultural advisor after that. A senior Te Reo Māori tutor at Te Wānanga Aotearoa, a choir master. He supported the New Zealand choir. He led Te Matapihi, which was one of the kapahaka in the Wanganui area. And Morv was really a great guy for bringing simple ideas and words together with really catchy tunes. So that's how I remember Morven, or Sir, as we used to call him at school. And my understanding of the whakapapa of this song, Te Aroha, was written in 1983 to soothe the situation during a fractious workers collective hui. So you can see how those words there, they kind of lend themselves to say, hey, let's all come together, you know, in peace and work together as one. So
thanks for sharing that one. I remember I'd never had the privilege of spending time with Kuruwara, with Morgan, but I know my papa did, and he spent a lot of time with Morgan at IRD back in time, and he always used to marvel at Morgan because every time Morgan would come along to a hui, he would tap into his composition skills, and he would come out with a waiata, and therefore, so he'd have waiata prepared for different organisations, which is something that you don't see very much of these days.
No, I mean, I think one more thing, and this is relevant, I think, to the context of culture in 2022. So now Te Reo was really how do I say this? It's, you know, it's got its own life. There are people, Te Aorangi is one of them, you know, being a language expert, like linguistically, that's actually a career these days. Whereas, you know, in the olden days when people didn't speak a lot of Māori, or Te Reo Māori was mostly heard on marae or in certain places, actually music was the main vehicle that we used to transmit our language. So, you know, kapahakas, and to teach it. And kapahaka has been around for a while, maybe not in the form of te matatini, but, you know, action songs from, you know, Te Puia and Apira Nangata's time to now. So, you know, popular songs like this, grabbing a tune, banging a few words on it, like you said, Te Aorangi, they're vehicles for language transmission, but it's also just a vehicle to kind of get people connected and into it. So,
and why is it a fantastic article for teaching language, because you often find things such as language device, or what we call language devices, or things like metaphors, and, you know, kupu whakarite we'd call them in Te Reo Māori, which you know, go a long way to teaching Te Reo Māori, and particularly the Māori thought within the language.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I also remember when Sir was teaching us Māori at Hatopaura, he'd say to the guys that weren't really into it, he'd say, boys, you just learn these 3 songs and then you repeat them in your story. And if you're honest, you know, if you think, oh, if you wanted to say a whai kōrero about something important, you might say, te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e. It's not a bad kōrero for a beginner. And then you can sing it. So I think that's another tip, mate, another hint for our mates out there who are learning Te Reo Māori. Aha ko hei te he pounamu, but make the most of the things you have, you know. Learn the translations, understand what it means, and it could come, I don't know if you do essay writing exercises, Te Aorangi, maybe you don't in this course, but sometimes those things are useful. So let's go through the rangi. So it goes like this, and this is really common, in government agencies, everybody sings a song. In fact, there's almost a competition now not to sing Te Aroha, because if you go to a hui, you could both be singing it. So you actually have to have a plan B. But this is the reason why Morv wrote this, and the reason why it's popular is because it's really, really simple. So let me start this. It just goes, Te Aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e. That's it. You can sing it twice. You can sing it once. Normally we do it twice in public service because, you know, that's probably the biggest song that people have. But beautiful song, beautiful song. Kia ora,
Thank you very much. I was a little bit afraid of singing it at the same time as you, particularly over Zoom. We might end up with 2 voices slightly echoing each other. So
it's a good point, mate. You can sing the next one.
Worse than I do. So thank you. Moving on. A slightly more recent Waiata that has come out by a well-known band within Aotearoa, within New Zealand, 660, and it's their new song Pepeha. Now you don't have to have all the flash instruments and whatnot to sing this song. And I'll get Atawhai once again to demonstrate or to show the rangi, the sound of this song. But I'll just go through some of the words to start with. So we've got the first line. Ko mana tōku maunga. Mana is my mountain. Ko aroha te moana. And aroha is my sea. Ko whānau tōku waka. whānau is my waka, ko au e tuatu nei, and all of that is me. Now, if we refer back to our pepeha webinar and content, which was held in week 3, you would have remembered that the pepeha is very much a GPS, or it's a way of locating yourself within the environment. And that's what this song does in some ways. And while it doesn't locate you to a specific location in Aotearoa, to a certain maunga or a certain wana or certain waka, what it shows is that you have connection to moana, you have connection to maunga, you have connection to waka. And I think this is also a good pepeha for Pākehā as well, Atawhai. Would you not agree?
Yeah, mate, I agree. I mean, the thing about this Waiata and also about 660, so Matiu Walters, the lead singer, he's Te Rarawa Te Aupōuri Ngāpuhi hard, but he actually was born and raised in Mount Eden, Central Auckland. So I think they did that other song, Kia Mau Kito Ukai Po, is that right? Don't forget your roots, eh? And they did write that song with the help of Hinewehi and others for the Waiata Anthem album. And I think most people on the Zoom, if you haven't heard about that, I'm not too sure what planet you're from, because it's an awesome album. You got to go out there and buy it.
Very right.
Waiata Anthems. But I saw something where Matiu talked about this pepeha, and he said, he's going on his own language journey, and he was thinking about what might be a pepeha for all New Zealanders, whether you were born here or you moved here and decided to make Aotearoa your home. So this is that. This is the reason why he wrote this song, and I think that's a good story, because one thing I've learned, mate, in teaching te reo and tikanga to people is actually Kiwis are an international people, and even though somebody may be born, Pākehā person might be born in a space, they might have moved from there. So some of the ideas and the concepts that we have, they're actually not universal. I taught a whole lot of people who are in mobile oil, and also foreign affairs. Most of those people have lived overseas most of their life, or the times when they had their most growth or whatever. So their parents from all overseas, and they themselves didn't feel grounded here. So what I love about this, mate, what I love about the song, it's saying, my mountain is mana. That life force, that prestige kind of, that thing. That's what Matiu is saying, that's my mountain. And my sea or my waters or my moana, it's aroha. And what's my canoe? That's whānau. And all of this is moving. It's beautiful, mate. And I really take my hat off. I think it's a great concept. You're right, Taurangi, this isn't Māori tuturu. Hey, it's not traditional Māori world, but this is a popular song. Very much. This is about people now. So let me have a go at singing this.
Right.
I like this song because I think this could be and I saw this online, this is the Te Aroha of 2022.
Modern age.
Modern age, there we go. And I'll do it like this. Ko mana tōku maunga, ko aroha te moana, ko whānau tōku waka, ko au e tuatu nei. Mana is my mountain, aroha is my sea, whānau is my waka, and all of that is me. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Karawe, I think you might have missed your calling, Atawhai, as a professional
I'll say this, mate, I do love this song, and I've actually taught it to organizations, and now they sing it. Everybody should know there's also a bridge, yeah? The bridge it's higher, it's higher. And there's nothing wrong with just singing these two. But if you want to sing the bridge, go and buy the album. Kia ora.
Karawe. Now, just moving on to our final, third and final song that we're going to cover today, which is Purea Nei, which was a song that was composed by Hirini Melbourne, who was a well-known Māori composer, singer, songwriter, who unfortunately passed away in the early 2000s. think it was about 2003, 2004. Hirini was a very well-respected Māori language teacher, lecturer, singer, songwriter, as I covered. And he was based for a lot of his time out of Waikato University in Hamilton. He has many hits or well-known songs within Waiata, within Te Ao Māori, in Te Reo Māori, and released many albums, particularly during the 80s, 90s period. Of which one of his well-known songs, which continues to be sung on a regular basis all the time in the modern age, is his song known as Pureanei. Now, Pureanei is a song that you can use in many different situations. For example, following the conclusion of a formal speech or oratory, known as whai kōrero, Pureanei could be used, and you often hear it on the marae, and can also be used in the workplace. So I'll just take you through some of the kupu, or some of the words that you'll see in this waiata. I would encourage that you do refer to a YouTube video, which I am going to include in the supporting resources section of this webinar for you to have a listen to the song. And I'll ask Whai to make any comments that he has on the song after I cover the words. Ka pai? So we've got Purea nei e te hau. Let the breeze blow. Horoia e te ua. Let the rain wash over us. Whiti whitia e te rā. And let the sun's rays shine on us. Mahea ke ngā pōraruraru. Freeing me from confusion. Makere ananga here, and from the bondage. So you can see the join between the two sentences there. Freeing me from confusion and from the bondage. Then we get into the second part. E rere wairua e rere. So let your spirit fly and soar. Ki ngā o ki ngā ranga o te rangi. To the clouds, into the skies. Whiti whitia e te rā. So once again, so that we are able to ensure that the sun's rays can shine on us. Once again, mahea ke ngā pōraruraru. Pakere ananga here. Freeing me from the confusion and the bondage. It's a well-known song, isn't it, Atawhai?
Mate, this is really, really common. It's a beautiful song. That's really why it's common, because everyone loves it. It's a relatively easy one to sing.
It's got a nice tune.
It's got a beautiful tune. So I'm going to share a little bit of kōrero that I've discovered recently. I didn't know this. And I do want to talk to Hirini's daughter, who's in town here. But apparently Hirini actually co-wrote this song. Right. So apparently this comes from Ngāpuhi teacher, Henare Mahanga, who wrote the original words and stuff. And it comes from their Ngāpuhi proverb, hoki kia pure koe ngā hau o maunga, you know, e hoki ki tō maunga, kia pure ngā hau o tāwhiri mate, kia horoia koe te ua, that kōrero. And apparently Hirini, Henare wrote it in sometime in the 80s, and Hirini Melbourne modified the song for one of the students at Waikato University, Kiwi Tuteo, who was blind and was going through a lot of adversity at the time, and came to Hirini for support. So that's an interesting kōrero I actually found online. There's actually a great resource called folksong.org.nz. It has a whole lot of Māori songs, and it tries to give you the kōrero. Yeah. And so I would recommend people always try to understand the whakapapa and the kōrero behind the song. Because the other thing, I think, what we're doing also, Tauranga, you know, it's one of the principles of haimata. You know, you always got to pay tribute to the people, eh? Rātou e nei taonga. Because all we're doing is we're being custodians who carry them, but we also have to look after them. And it's hard to look after stuff if you don't know who owns it. So, you know, always make sure, you know, you do your homework. So, of course, Hirini Melbourne is the well-known composer of this version of this waiata. But there's also some credit due to Henare Mahanga, who actually I've met in my life. I know I met Henare at a journalism course with Wazzy Shortland. Well, his name was Wazzy in those days. Wasn't Waihoroi. But I think Wazzy came from washing machine, eh? And Tauranga understands the story behind that. But let me, I mean, I should sing a little bit of this because I think it's beautiful.
Karawe.
And, you know, it would be wrong not to have a crack. So let me have a crack. Toru wha. Purea nei e te hau, horoia e te ua, whiti whitia e te rā. Mahe ake ngā poraruraru, ma kere ana ngā here. Erere, wairua erere, ki ngā ao o te rangi, whiti whitia e te rā. Mahe ake ngā poraruraru, ma kere ana ngā here. Ma kere ana ngā here. It's a much more beautiful song than the way I sing it, and it sounds way better with a group and a guitar, but that's the general way that it goes. And I'm with Te Aorangi. There will be some links after our kōrero that you can go to hear beautiful versions and renditions of these waiata. Tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koe ata whai. Koe pēr te manu tī koru, ko koe te manu tī ori. I've got the voice of a rooster, and ata whai is the voice of a songbird. Essentially is that saying. So thank you very much, ata whai. Tēnā koe. Just moving on, just the last couple of things for this webinar. We hope you've got a bit out of this webinar based on waiata. And as we've said, there are many different waiata that you can use for many different situations. And it's a way of expressing ourselves. So a learning tip is to repeat aloud new things that you hear. So now that you've heard ata whai singing these 3 beautiful songs, why don't you go and give it a go yourself? Have a go at singing this waiata, get a group of people around from your organization and sing this waiata as ata whai did, or if you could try and do that. And just finally, we've got some supporting resources, some waiata, which will be included in the online learning platform. Some of them have been the ones we've covered today, such as Te Aroha, Purea Nei, and Pepeha, which you can see in the top right corner of your screen. But there are also a couple of other songs there as well, which are commonly and well-known songs that are sung on an everyday basis in the public sector and also in other areas as well, such as He Honore, Paikea, and E Toru Ngā Mea. Ka pai, before we close off, do you have any final closing remarks, ata whai, for those who are watching?
Yeah. I'll just say this. I mean, you're right, Te Aorangi, I've done singing in my life. I'm not the best. I'm not the worst. I know how to handle a tune. But I will say this, and I think this is important for beginners. Start at the basics, yeah? I think Te Aroha and Mana are really good basic songs. And just make sure you conquer those. Because when you get up, what we want to see you do is to do the song as best as you can, all together and with confidence. And in my experience, you know, the harder the song is, the longer the words are. The more you may need accompaniment with guitar, because you can't always rely on the guitarist being there, the better it is just to have some simple basic ones in your belt and you pump those out. So that would be my only tip. Kia kaha, kia maia, hei konei, hei kona.
Tēnā koe ata whai, thank you very much for joining us in this webinar today. Before we close off, I'll just close off with our closing karakia. We hope you've enjoyed this hōtaka, this program, Upoko Pakaru. Today is the last webinar. So thank you very much for joining us over the last 7 or 8 weeks to cover some of the content that we have. And we hope that it's provided you with a bit of an insight and a start to your language learning journey. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia karakia tātou. Tēnā whakairia te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai. Āmine. Tēnā tātou katoa, ngā mihi nui.